CamarilloPrimeGovernment.com, and access to that website is available online to anyone, and you can see the agenda and attachments and whatnot. But I ask your forgiveness in advance. It may look like we're stumbling up here. It's just because we're fumbling through different attachments and whatnot and getting used to the system. We haven't used it before. We had a training program, and that went off successfully, and now is the real test. So you get to be the judge whether it was really good or not. So with that said, please bear with us, and we'll move on to the first item on the agenda. Actually, it's the fourth item, which is the consent calendar. And items on the consent calendar are considered to be general business and will be acted upon in a single vote unless, for some reason, one of the planning commissioners wants to pull an item for further discussion or clarification. So, do we have any clarifications or changes to the minutes? Do I have a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved. I'll move to accept.
Second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Vote. Oppose? Hearing none, motion passes. This is something we didn't practice, is how we do the vote.
So the votes are going to continue as we have, so you'll still use your pencils to actually vote the way we
okay.
have in the past. So
So,
if you guys can just resubmit your votes.
okay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay. Moving on. Public comments. This is the time and this is the place for members of the public to present a matter to the Planning Commission which does not appear on this agenda. Action items cannot be taken on these items that are discussed. However, these items will be referred to staff or scheduled for a future agenda. Are there any comments under public comments? Do we have any cards?
We have no requests or public comments.
Close the public comment. Now we have a public hearing, agenda item B, which is a recommendation of a zoning ordinance amendment to create a director-level conditional use permit process and to allow certain uses subject to a director-level approval. Do we have a staff report?
Yes, our senior planner, Mr. Novi, will be presenting this item.
Thank you, Commissioner Talmadge, members of the Planning Commission. The item before you tonight, as the Chairman Talmadge introduced, is a zoning ordinance amendment to create a director-level conditional use permit and to establish certain uses that would be subject to this director-level CUP. The current zoning requirements in the city are that the off-sale of alcoholic beverages at restaurants, the establishment of breweries, wineries, and distilleries, and the establishment of daycare and nurseries are subject to review and approval by the Planning Commission, either through a conditional use permit or a commercial plan development permit. The proposed zoning ordinance amendment would create a director-level conditional use permit process and allow for the off-sale of alcoholic beverages with an approved restaurant, the establishment of breweries, wineries, and distilleries in industrial zones, and all daycare and nursery short-term to be subject to that director-level conditional use permit. A little bit of background. In September 2018, the City Council adopted the Economic Development Strategic Plan that prioritized the streamlining and expediting of permit processes for businesses in the city. In November 2020, staff presented a concept for a zoning ordinance amendment to create the director-level CUP, and the City Council unanimously, the City Council unanimously directed staff to move forward with the ZOA. In May 2021, staff presented to the Planning Commission Ordinance Committee, and the committee reviewed the ZOA and proposed and recommended that it be brought for consideration by the full Planning Commission. So for off-sale alcohol with an approved restaurant, currently that would require a conditional use permit issued by the Planning Commission. The intent would be to allow for restaurant patrons to purchase beer, wine, or liquor for off-site consumption as an ancillary use. It would not allow for an establishment to be a liquor store or a drinking establishment. That would still be subject to a CUP by the Planning Commission. You can see the uses listed below. Those are all of the zones that allow for restaurants. And that would be the zones that would be amended to allow for off-sale, subject to a director CUP. For breweries, wineries, and distilleries, they're currently only allowed in the SC, LM, M1, and M2 industrial zones within the city with a CUP. The ZOA would move those uses to be under a director-level CUP. For daycare nursery short-term, they are allowed either with a conditional use permit or a commercial plan development permit issued by the Planning Commission. The ZOA would make daycare nurseries subject to a director-level CUP in the zones listed on the screen. Daycare nurseries would continue to be subject to the standards of a CUP that's already established in our code, and family daycare facilities in residential zones will continue to be permitted by right in the city. So the director-level CUP process would modify Chapter 1962, which is conditional use permits, to add sections that identify the procedures for a director-level CUP. Director-level CUP would be appealable to the Planning Commission. It would require public notice to property owners within 600 feet and a sign on the subject property for an at least 10-day comment period. The director's CUP may impose conditions of approval and may be considered for rescission by the Planning Commission for a violation of the adopted conditions. The director-level CUP would be for off-sale of alcohol with an approved restaurant, establishment of breweries, wineries, and distilleries, and establishing daycare nurseries. It is recommended that language be added to the proposed restating of Chapter 1962 that was disseminated in the agenda packet that would authorize the director to elevate a director-level CUP to a CUP for consideration by the Planning Commission. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution recommending that the City Council adopt an ordinance for the proposed ZOA with the additional language to elevate a CUP at the director's discretion. If the Planning Commission concurs, a public hearing will be scheduled with the City Council to consider the proposed ZOA. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Are there any questions of staff at this time? Commissioner Edsel?
I have a couple of questions. What are other cities doing? Are they have a similar process, or are we kind of on the front end of that?
Yes, staff surveyed other cities and jurisdictions within the county of Ventura and found that the cities of Moore Park, Thousand Oaks, Port Hueneme, and the city of Ventura all have an administrative director-level conditional use permit process, as well as the county of Ventura.
And then when it says that decision can be appealed, is that a member of the public could appeal the director's decision on issuing some of these?
That's correct. The director's decision could be appealed by a member of the public, and then that would be considered by the Planning Commission.
And how would they know about the appeal? Would it be after someone spent money and established the place, and then it would be appealed, or is there some sort of notice that goes out that it's been approved and has an appeal period for the public to?
There's not an official notification after approval. It will be subject to the same noticing requirements for a standard conditional use permit. So all property owners within 600 feet of the site and a sign on the property for the public to be notified of the impending decision after a 10-day comment period. Once it is approved, there is an additional 10 days that a member of the public can submit an application for an appeal of that decision, and then it would
Okay.
be scheduled for the Planning Commission.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I was a little worried that someone would spend the money setting up a place, and then a member of the public wouldn't like it, and then file an appeal, and that didn't seem like that'd be a fair process, but that sounds like you guys thought it out, so thank you.
Any other questions of staff?
Trying to find, I didn't have a question on the presentation. It was just on one of the verbiages and one of the ordinance changes. If I can go down to that, or is that not the time to do that? Under daycare nurseries, and this would be under the red line version on page 29. So for daycares, we have whoops, I went too far here. I'm just get a little confused on that when it says that, talks about outdoor playing. So daycare nurseries short-term have to provide a certain amount for play area, but then it says, C says daycare nurseries do not need to provide outdoor play area. So to me, that's a little confusing, and I didn't know if that could be explained or if it needs to be changed a little.
We're looking into that discrepancy. The majority of these standards that are in Chapter 1962 are taken directly from the standards that the state has imposed for
Okay.
requirements to obtain a license. It appears that we might have overlooked that discrepancy, but we will confirm with our city attorney's office to make sure that that is clarified. And we're going to be continuing to use the state standards for
Okay.
a license to make sure that that is fixed before it goes to the city council.
Okay. Yeah, I just found that one a little confusing. I kind of enjoyed the fact that we're tightening everything up a bit, going from the shells to the wills and the maize to the muss. And I think everything else I read was pretty well changed and together. So that was the only really kind of question I ran up against. Plus, I got to test going to what document and what page. That's all I
So
had.
are we going to have a change in the document?
Chair, I don't believe that's necessary. Again, the item tonight is just for recommendation, so I think we're going to include these comments
Okay.
along with the recommendation. So
All right.
we'll figure out with staff what needs to be changed, or if this is more suitable change for a later time maybe. But we'll definitely make a comment in the report about that.
Okay, okay. Mine is just were there any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. On the alcohol, the ABC license applications, I just want to confirm that every single one of those at the director level will still require the 600-foot notice.
That's correct.
Okay.
All director level CUPs will be providing that 600-foot notice.
Okay, and then the second item, again with the ABC licensing, that all such applications will involve the city's consultation with the Camarillo Police Department for their input as well. Is that correct?
That is correct. All ABC licenses in the city are reviewed by Camarillo PD. Yeah.
Great. And then on the child care portion, it's my understanding that prior to this amendment, it's a PDP if it's 6 children or less. Is that correct? Prior to this amendment.
Yes, it's a PDP for certain zones, and it does identify for 6 or less.
Okay, and then those are being sunsetted with this amendment. Is that correct?
That's correct. We're bringing all daycare and nursery short-term under the same umbrella for consistency, because from zone to zone, it's a little bit different. Some require a conditional use permit, some are a planned development permit. So this would provide consistency.
Okay. And then the only child care facilities that will need a permit moving forward, and they'll be at the director level, will be the CUP for facilities that are greater than 6 kids?
This would encompass all daycare and nursery. So even if it is more than 6 children, it would still be through that director level conditional use permit. But it would also be subject to state licensing standards as well.
But will, in moving forward, assuming this is approved, will there be any instances where you have a child care facility of 6 children or less that would require a permit, or would you not?
It would still require that director level CUP for a facility within the identified zones, even if it's less than 6 children.
I see. So there's still 2 categories, 6 children or less and greater than 6. But all of those are at the CUP level.
Correct. And then the other category you might be thinking of is family daycare in residential zones. And then those do not require a discretionary permit.
Got it. Now I understand. That makes sense. All right, thank you.
Question.
Vice Chair Espinoza.
A couple of questions. I wanted to ask, so just to be clear, this is the limit of the scope of this director-level CUP process is focusing on wineries and distilleries and breweries and daycare centers, and that's it. Is that right?
There's also the off-sale of alcohol with an approved
restaurants?
restaurant.
Right, okay.
And those are the only 3 types of uses that are being recommended as part of a director-level CUP.
Okay. And this, for the cities that have adopted similar provisions for director-level approval, were the land uses similar to what we're looking at here? Did they involve alcohol sales?
I don't, yeah, it's a different mix of uses for the different jurisdictions. I don't unfortunately have a list of the types of uses, but some of them include small wireless facilities, some industrial permits. There are some use permits that are allowed through a director level. I know like wireless facilities is the one that I know for sure does have a director level approval process through the county of Ventura. So it kind of varies by jurisdiction. This is new for us. We're taking a soft approach, stuff that isn't very controversial, things that, you know, we've seen already in the city that we kind of know we have a handle on. So we're kind of testing the waters on this and going slow. It's envisioned that there might be a possibility to expand that at some point in the future, but at this point, we're only looking at these 3 uses at this point.
Okay. And, I mean, I certainly see the necessity or even the benefit of trying to streamline and maybe make it more business-friendly, in other words, as far as shortening the process and so forth. It seems like a lot of the projects have involved similar type of occupancy. So how would you anticipate the schedule of planning commission agendas moving forward with something like this in place in terms of the calendar filling? Because
So I can feel that one. So basically, I think we've done, what, about 4?
Like
3 or 4. Yeah, it's 3 or 4 wineries or CUPs that are kind of alcohol related. So instead of just bringing them to the planning commission, we would handle those at the staff level. So it would just remove those from your calendar.
okay, so there may be fewer meetings than we currently have, possibly, if those are off the dock.
It's possible. I mean, we always try to group up, the items together, so
Okay.
we're not coming out just for one item.
Okay, and then when you do actually notice for a director level approval, in what manner is that going to actually occur? Is it going to be sort of like a set time of month or times of month that actually occurs for anyone who comes forward with this type of a request? Or how will that play out?
Yeah, we already have procedures established with our temporary use permits where there's no set timeline of when we consider approval of those. When we get an application, notification is sent out to that 600-foot radius, and once that notification is delivered, we start the clock. So 10 days later is when that comment period closes. And once that comment period closes, that's when we would be able to consider approval of that permit. And we anticipate this process working the same, finishing that 10-day period and then considering whether the CUP would be approved.
All right. And since it's a public hearing type of an approval, is it going to be inserted in the Planning Commission list of public hearings, or where will that be posted?
So I can answer that. When we receive an application, what we plan on doing is including that in our monthly report that's distributed to the Planning Commission. So you guys will be notified of receiving the application and any approvals that we make at the staff level.
Okay. Post after they've already been approved?
Well, as soon as we get them, if
or
we're
just when you
reviewing
get
them,
the
because we
applications?
still, look for completeness, and then we sit down with the applicant and go over all the conditions, and then we do the 10-day, public comment period. So there could be, pending, it would be listed as pending or under review. And then once we approve it, then we'll switch that over to approved.
Okay. But the discretion will lie still with staff in terms of determining whether it's a use that's not going to cause any sort of public
Yes,
nuisance or whatever the case may be.
yes, similar to our other administrative permits. Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. Oh, and I wanted to ask about the cost, permit cost. I am assuming has that been evaluated as to how it's going to compare to the current cost?
It's approximately half the cost now. Do we have the fixed permit cost?
We do have the current cost, which is actually adjusting on the 24th.
For Planning Commission CUP?
Yes.
It's right here. It's increasing to $7,003, effective the 24th of this month.
Okay, so,
And then we're anticipating the director level CUP will be approximately half that, so probably approximately 3,500.
and is that how it's applied in the other cities, do you know, or whether there's any reduction in that fee process?
We didn't compare to see if it's like approximately half or not, but it is a lower fee amount.
It is lower?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank
It's
you.
reflective of the approximate amount of staff time that would be necessary to review that.
Right.
And then something you mentioned a little while ago, I just want to point out clarification. The director approval would actually not be through a public hearing process. We would take comments, and then the director would make a decision on the CUP, and we would make that determination and follow up with an approval letter. But it wouldn't actually be a public hearing.
Right, okay. But there's an opportunity for the public to,
Yeah, once notice goes out, that would
Wait.
start the 10-day comment period to collect public input.
okay. Thank you.
I have a few follow-up questions with regard to...
If I could just make one more comment, then follow up on this for a minute.
Yes.
Just to kind of summarize this, then, if I'm understanding this correctly, from what I'm reading and what I'm hearing, this will shorten the process, shorten the cost in these particular instances, but not shorten or delete any of the qualifications that they have to currently meet. Is that correct?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct.
Okay. Thank you. I'm done.
So, again, following up, the notification process, is it the same as if it were to come to the Planning Commission? You would have a public notice published in the paper, or you just distribute the public notice to affected property owners, or how does that work?
It would be mailed to property owners within 600 feet with a sign posted on the property. But it's not anticipated to include a
It doesn't go
newspaper
into a
notification.
publication of general distribution,
Correct.
like the Acorn or something? Okay. Is there, well, I understand part of the reason behind this. It's, I guess, in a broad sense, part of the permit streamlining, where we're, instead of the city being administratively holding up various applications, this is a quicker way to get things through. The sort of matter-of-fact things that had been Planning Commission items are now at the director level. And that's what I understand in reading this, that we're not changing any of the rules, we're just saying who approves it. in essence. Okay. So it's cleaning up the language in the zoning code so that these decisions can be made at the director level. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And is there a process, I didn't see it spelled out, where the planning commission can appeal a decision? I see where you have citizens can appeal the decision, but can the planning commission, let's say, we read about it in the paper, or we walk by and see something, well, where'd that come from? And start digging in. Can the planning commission appeal a decision to be
Planning-
brought before the planning commission for discussion and approval?
Planning commissioners would have the ability to appeal that director level CUP. However, it would have to be under the capacity of a interested party, not a member of the planning commission. And we would require the application and the fee for that appeal. And then planning commissioner who appealed that would have to recuse from the consideration of that appeal.
Okay.
But they would have the
So
ability to do so.
I could go appeal something, but then I could not vote on it.
Correct.
Right. Okay. Is there any anticipated reporting procedure that the department will do to inform the planning commission of director actions being taken under this new code?
Yes, we will be putting all applications received into our monthly report
Okay,
that we send out to the planning commission and the public.
okay, all right.
So, and then, so it'll be, once we receive the application, it'll be under review.
Right.
And then, once it's approved, we'll switch that over to approved.
Okay, so we will have visibility to the actions being taken?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Any other questions of staff? Okay,
Chair, I wanted to add, some clarification on the record. I believe, Mr. Nova mentioned that there will not be a public hearing when the director is reviewing and considering these conditional use permits. I think he misspoke. It's not going to be a public hearing in the sense of the whole get up with the dais and everything like that, but it'll be more informal, but it'll still be open to the public and they can come in. You usually see these type of kind of more informal public hearings that are held like in an administrative conference room or something like that, but I think he misspoke in the sense that it's
that
still a
would be-
public hearing, it's just
Right.
not
I understand.
similar to this type
But
of
that would
grant.
be part of the notice that's sent out, that you're going to be sending on that action anyway?
Correct.
Yeah,
It'll be a notice like any traditional CUP process. The public would be, if they're interested, they could submit written comments, or they could actually attend
Right.
the public hearing if they want to. But again, it's just, might not just be as grand and formal as this
I
process.
understand. Thank you. Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, may I follow with your comments regarding that? If it is legislatively, if it needs to be, classified as a public hearing, even if it's a decision being reviewed and approved by a director, would it be appropriate that actually be inserted in the calendar, in the meeting calendar for the date when that occurs, so that it exists there as a public hearing notice item, rather than a monthly report? Or do you think the monthly report is suffice for that public review?
Vice Chair, I think I'm hearing two things here. In terms of the noticing, it'll follow the Chapter 19.84, which would be the typical public hearing noticing procedures on the front end. Now, if you're talking about, how the city will procedurally announce the decisions, I think that's just part of the monthly report, and that's not something related to the public hearing procedures specifically. And that's up to the city in terms of how they want to their policy in terms of providing summary reports or things of that nature.
But if you're a member of the public and you're sort of like looking at the newspaper, or maybe you don't see the newspaper, and maybe you don't live in the proximity in order to get a notice, but you want to follow what is happening related to planning matters, and you go to the Planning Commission website and you go to the list of things, you won't see it there, right? You won't see any of these types of CUP notices and approvals there, right?
That's correct. We're not anticipating to include it on the Planning Commission page. However, like we'd mentioned before, on our monthly report, it will be included, which has maps and information on the item, the planner involved, contact information, a brief description of the project. So you will be able to see that on a monthly report basis, so you can track and see what the city has done.
And just to add on to that, Vice Chair, it's like any typical conditional use permit process. If it comes publicly noticed, then if people are interested enough, they come to the meetings. I think if they don't come to the meeting, then, you know, they already had their notice and their opportunity to participate. I think whatever we do in terms of announcements and monthly reports and things of that nature, that's extra and according to city policy as opposed to any legal requirements.
Okay, so we're on solid ground in terms of how we're, okay, good, thanks.
I have a couple more follow-ups. Are you pardon me?
I'd like
Okay.
to.
Is your report going to show pending actions as well as approved actions? Okay.
That's
Okay.
correct.
Yes.
Now, does the public have access to that, your report?
Yes, the report
From
is
through the city website?
correct. It is published on our
Okay.
website.
So the public's not getting left out at all?
Correct.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Murphy?
Yeah, I'm sorry to continue with this clarification, but what Kane said about the public hearing, there will be a public notice, but that's only for the 600 feet. Is that correct? Or is there a general public notice that the general public would be privy to prior to that meeting that would be held by the director that in which the general public is invited?
It would be subject to the Chapter 1984, which is our public hearing notice procedures. So it would go to that 600-foot, there'll be a sign on the property, and I believe it does actually have to be published in the newspaper as a point of clarification, as well as being posted on the city's website.
On the city's website. Okay, great. Thank you.
So and then just kind of expand a little bit further, we're not set on the 600 feet. If we see a neighborhood that potentially would be interested in that, we usually extend beyond that, and we've gone, you know, pretty far out, you know, a couple of thousand feet if we think that they would be impacted. So it's not a hard, we're just stopping the notification at 600 feet. If it's a full neighborhood, we notify that whole neighborhood. We use more of a geographic boundary than just the 600-foot boundary.
That's great. I've seen you do that before. Thanks.
And it's never less than 600, always greater.
And
Are
I
there
do
any
want to
other
add to that,
questions of
but
staff?
according to state law, it is 300 feet, so we actually, our city goes above and beyond the legal requirements for that.
Any other questions?
Just on a
Madam
follow-up to Commissioner Murphy's, if I remember correctly, when you're posting a hearing, there's usually, or I think I've seen signs on the property that there's going to be a hearing. If they're not having a hearing, is there some other signage that we can put on the location, on the physical location, that a change is being considered or submitted, or?
It would still be subject to that sign requirement as identified in Chapter 1984.
Okay.
So once that comment period is going to start, the sign will then identify that it's for a director-level conditional use permit.
Okay,
And that there's the 10-day comment period that is open.
okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, with that, this is a public hearing. I declare the public hearing open. Are there any members of the public that have anything to say on this matter? Do we have any cards or any other communication?
We have no request to speak.
Hearing and seeing none, I declare the hearing closed. And we now have a resolution for consideration. May we have a reading of the resolution?
Resolution number PC 2021-19, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Camarillo recommending approval to the City Council of the proposed ordinance amending Camarillo Municipal Code Chapters 19.21 through 19.30 and 19.32, and amending and restating Chapter 19.62 to create a director-level CUP approval process for certain uses.
I'll make a motion to waive further reading and vote for adoption.
I'll second.
And just for the planning commission's clarification, I wanted to make sure that this is to include the modified language as mentioned by staff in their report earlier.
What's that? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Essel. I just wanted to clarify that the motion includes the recommendation earlier by staff to include some modified language as well?
Yes, includes that.
Is everyone satisfied with the motion and the second? Okay, we get to vote. We voted.
Do it again?
Vote again?
There it goes.
Motion is approved unanimously. We move on to the next agenda item. Thank you all very much for the discussion. Next item is item C is a public art for IPD-390M, Parent 1, Trojan Storage. Do we have a staff report?
Yes, this item will also be presented by our senior planner, John Noby.
Thank you, Commissioner Talmadge, members of the Planning Commission. This item is for consideration of requested public art for Trojan Storage, which was approved under IPD 390 M1 on January 19, 2021. As part of the IPD approval, condition number 150 stated that prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant must submit a proposal for public art to be reviewed and approved by the Planning Commission, and prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, the approved public art must be installed on site. The general plan community design element does contain guidelines for public art that identify that the art have a cultural amenities to celebrate Camarillo's diverse history and unique character, take advantage of opportunities to emphasize through art the cultural connection between Camarillo, Channel Islands, and local art groups, use public art and cultural amenities to help commemorate local history and culturally significant places, support artworks and cultural activities that explore and reflect the diverse facets of Camarillo life, and to encourage larger projects to incorporate public art. This image here is the requested public art that's being proposed by Trojan Storage. This would be constructed as a mosaic with individually colored tiles showing the rolling hills surrounding Camarillo, the agricultural background, the signature bougainvillea, and some diverse animal life. The location of the proposed public art would be seen here, circled on Building A, facing the extension of Camino Carrillo. And here is a rendering of what it would look like on the approved Building A in that location. The public art panel is approximately 5 feet in height and 10 feet in width. The artist who has been commissioned by Trojan Storage to create the art specializes in mosaics. This is an example of work that the artist has created for another project to show the level of detail that is included with the mosaics. It's recommended that the proposed mosaic is approved by the Planning Commission with the addition of a border around the edge of the art panel to protect and distinguish the panel from the wall behind. And that concludes staff's report.
Are there any questions of staff?
Yeah.
Commissioner
Go
Murphy?
ahead. I didn't have a question. I just really appreciate the looks of it. And we had started to talk a little bit about murals when we were talking about was the tire building going down and maybe a mural on the side of the Harbor Freight type thing. So it's nice to see something in this means, as far as a mural-type look. And especially the examples of the other work by the artist, it looks like it's going to be really, really pretty. So, and the way it's depicted, and it really brings out still that all the farmland that we still have on the other side of the freeway from that. So I was really enjoying looking at everything that went into that.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yeah, I really like the look of it, too. I'm thinking in terms of protecting it. Is the tile a material that's resistant to graffiti, or is that something that gets coated with something that would preserve its integrity?
I know that the tiles have a certain type of coating that does make it more resistant to graffiti and easier to clean. I know that was a point of discussion through the design phase and working with the applicant and the artist. I just don't remember the exact specifics on the type of material, but yet that was a consideration, that it is easy to clean.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Edsel?
Yeah, I was just curious for this ordinance for public art, how long, that's a relatively new addition to the code, and then could you also give some examples of other projects that have that in the last few years?
The public art is not an ordinance requirement. It's in the community design element of the general plan. And on larger projects that we've seen recently have had conditions of approval to add the public art. So recently, the Camino Ruiz apartment project had a condition of approval that recommended, or that required public art. Trojan Storage was approved just before that, and they're the first ones, obviously, to come forward with a proposal for public art. We have a couple of other larger projects in the pipeline. We have an application for some renovations to the Central Plaza, and it's already being discussed to incorporate public art with that project, and a couple of others that are larger that meet that criteria that's identified in the general plan of over 25,000 square feet are being considered with conditions to have public art. So this is likely to be the first in hopefully a long series of projects that come back to the Planning Commission to add additional public art.
Yeah, I think it's good, and this is an attractive project, and I had concerns about graffiti too, but I think they thought about that in the material being used, so, great, thank you.
So you're saying that at 25,000 square foot building size level, it's something that you may have as a condition or will have as a condition?
Currently, it is made. The general plan is not specific. It says that it's recommended on larger projects.
Okay.
But as a point of emphasis for consistency with the general plan, we have been requiring that as a condition of approval.
Okay, so at this point, it's not a mandate. Yeah, I do like the look. I only have one quick comment. I guess I'll have to be the one to point this out, but I wonder why they didn't use fleshy tones on the ag worker, on the face and the hands.
I believe that's something that probably could be added by the artist.
That would be my recommendation.
Yeah, this is still kind of a conceptual rendering, and we can relay that comment to the artist to include that in the final piece.
Thank you.
Good comment.
I'd just like to add also, and I heard a couple of comments about graffiti and removal. So on the original condition of approval for the permit to construct the building, there's a condition on there that they have to maintain the building appropriately and promptly remove any graffiti. So that's already a condition of approval on their original permit.
I have a question that came up a little bit earlier, but what is the size of the mosaic? Are they small pieces of tile or large pieces, or is it a combination?
I believe it's anticipated to be smaller pieces of tile. However, it could have variation and use larger tiles. I've seen some of the artists' other work, and there is some variation in tile size. It's not all the same piece.
Yeah, I was going to say, some of the big areas there certainly could be large portions of color of a larger piece, and the smaller details is something else. Just a question. See, that implies to me those are all very small pieces of tile.
It's very difficult to tell on this scale, looking at it at the screen, but on the computer screen here in front of me, I can see that there's certain areas along the beach that definitely use smaller tiles than things along the birds and the fish. So there will be some variation in the tile size. They won't all be the exact same.
All right. Are there any other comments? I think we have two representatives of the Trojan storage. Do you have any comment you'd like to make?
No, I'm saying no to incorporate all.
Okay. All right. This is not a public hearing. It's just a matter of discussion item and approval.
Chair, I do want to make a point. I know we have a new agenda here, and it's in some ways not as detailed as our older agenda format, but since they're asking for some action to approve this concept, I think it'd probably be better to open it up for public comment and see if anyone wants to speak on the item.
Do you care to make any public comment?
No, I think the two things I would mention on the mosaic, can you come to the microphone, please? Because they can't hear you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Thank you.
Sorry, I was just going to mention on the, I like the idea of covering it either with glass or clear plastic to protect it from graffiti. It is going to be a graffiti-resistant material, but I think we can definitely do something to cover it up. On the tiles themselves, so it will be a variation of larger and smaller tiles, mostly smaller, but it hasn't been completely decided. And so the artist will select, she has an idea of what kind of material she wants, but it also will depend on what's available at the time. That's it. Two comments I had.
Can you please state your name and title for the record?
Yes, my name is Dimitri. I am development manager with Trojan Storage.
Thank you.
All right, thank you guys.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here tonight. I think this is a very attractive proposed mural. Much of the audience is going to be flying by at 65 miles an hour and looking very quickly to their right to see the mural, but there are times when traffic is stopped and you get a good chance to get a good look at it. So, but I think it's very attractive. Are there any other comments by the commission?
I don't have
I
any.
think we've had some. Do we need a vote of approval?
Yes.
Okay, I would call for the question of a recommendation to approve this proposed public art for the Trojan Storage Development Project.
I move that we approve the mural as it is with the amendments that were mentioned or
Right.
suggested by Vice Chair Espinosa.
Right. So we have the motion with the addition of language for the skin color of the agricultural worker.
I'll second it.
Right. Is there any other addition? Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by voting. Approved. That's it. Well, thank you very much for being here tonight. We appreciate it. And thank you for the work on the mural. Okay, the next item is the director's report.
So I just have one item here. I just want to say thank you. You guys did a really good job. Yeah, you going paperless. We have provided the binder up at your station there. So feel free to go home, take that home with you and bring it with you if you prefer to have the, copies of all the other stuff that, the supporting documentation in the back. So, and then if you have any questions on the, the laptop or the tablet or trying to access, agenda reports in the future, just please feel free to give us a call and we'll walk you through it. So we can even FaceTime with you.
Right. I had one issue last Thursday. I wasn't getting it to load correctly, and I got excellent help and got it all figured out. There was a button that wasn't pushed, not on my machine, but the city machine, and then everything worked fine after that, so I had no problem.
I needed additional help yesterday, so
The minute I got it, I thought, oh, I got
it was very much appreciated.
And I was back at the lesson plan, and I went, wait a minute, I already did that one. But anyway, I have a couple of questions. What is our meeting schedule for the rest of the year? Are we having a meeting on the 2nd of November?
We do not have any items scheduled for the 2nd of November. We do have potentially one item for the 30th of November.
30th of November.
But
Okay, so the 19th is out, or the whatever it was.
Yeah, whatever the.
So
yeah, the
30
first
November,
meeting's out.
we have a meeting. Okay, and what about December?
We do not have any meetings scheduled.
No
for
meetings
December.
in December. Wow. I'm gonna miss everybody. Okay, so 30 November is a hard day. Put that on the calendar, and nothing until then and nothing after then for the rest of the year.
That's correct.
Do we do our reorganization in January?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we wait until January before we do that, okay. My last comment was, I appreciated the opportunity to attend the California League of Cities Conference a few weeks ago in Sacramento, and I'm looking forward to the Planning Commissioners Conference coming up in the spring, and I hope that all of us can attend. We were all at the League of Cities and had different experiences and different times, but I think overall it was an excellent opportunity for us to see some of the bigger picture of what's going on in California. Of course, the big bugaboo that's out there is SB 9 and its ramifications and how that's going to affect us vis-a-vis the housing element and other things. So that'll be a big deal that we're going to be seeing a lot of in the near term, I think, in our agendas and our actions. So, but thank you. Are there any other comments from the commission?
Just wanted to thank the staff for the training on these. I think it's going to work out really well. And I learned also that if you do highlight things in yellow and make notes, then you need to save it before you shut your computer off. Because I got here tonight and my notes are all gone.
Yeah.
So
I had to learn that also.
Yeah. But yeah, I think these are real user-friendly and should be good. We'll save a few trees too, I think. Thank you.
What I like about the book is just the background information. So that's good. Vice Chair Espinoza.
Yeah, I do want to thank Chairman Talmadge for adjusting his schedule and allowing me to attend training in flipping the schedules for some family matters, and I really want to extend thanks to staff. I got a lot of really nice response from staff, and just always helpful to have comforting words when dealing with family health matters. So thank you for that personal response.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate the staff's help too. With this crew, you had your work cut out for you in terms of getting us up to speed on this, including today when I was trying to do the word search. I forgot that you have to press that quotation mark to pull that up, and Janessa helped me out on that. So thanks for all of that, and again, thanks to the city for allowing us to go to the convention. It was well attended by, I think we all attended it, and city council as well, and it was very nice to get out there and, rub elbows from a distance with everybody else in person, and that's much appreciated. Thanks.
Yeah. I enjoyed being at the conference, largely a lot because there was such a variety in topics. that we could all go to something quite often different, and then also being able to interact with the city council members while we were there, which was really great. So they did, the topics that they offered were just so broad and covered so many things. It was really good. And as far as our new little tablets here, I'm glad you're still going to be closed for questions. But so far, I think I did fairly well with it, getting used to it. I did have to learn to save things. I had to learn a few things once we managed to get me onto Wi-Fi. So thank you for all the work you've put into this and all the help we've gotten. And I know it's there if I still need it. Thank you. That's all.
Okay, anything else? Any other comments? Meeting is adjourned.
I have to figure out how to get out of it.